The year was 2247 when the alien ships arrived at the edge of human space. Their ships looked like beautiful crystals floating in the darkness of space. They were called the Zathari, and they came from a group of many alien races called the Galactic Council. They wanted to see if humans were ready to join them and meet other aliens in the galaxy. Captain Helen Price was in charge of the big space station where the aliens would visit. She was a strong woman who had worked hard to reach her position. But that day she had a problem. Her 8-year-old son Daniel was supposed to be in the childcare area, but the computers there had stopped working. With all the confusion of getting ready for the alien visitors, little Daniel had wandered away. Daniel was a curious boy with bright eyes and messy brown hair. He loved space and aliens and anything about exploring the stars. When he found an empty observation deck with huge windows looking out into space, he pressed his face against the glass and stared at the strange alien ships. That was when he heard a soft sound, like wind chimes or music. He turned around and saw her. She was tall, much taller than any human Daniel had ever seen. Her skin glowed with a soft blue and silver light that kept changing, like watching the ocean at night. Her eyes were deep and dark, like looking into space itself. She had a face that was almost human but not quite, with features that seemed too perfect to be real. Daniel's mouth fell open. He had never seen anything so beautiful. The alien girl looked down at him with curiosity. She tilted her head and made more musical sounds. A small device on her chest blinked and then spoke in English. "Hello, small creature. What are you?" Daniel found his voice. "I'm a human. A boy, my name is Daniel. What are you?" "I am Lyra, I am Zathari. I did not know humans came in such small sizes." Daniel puffed out his chest. "I'm not that small. I'm just a kid. I'm going to be really tall when I grow up. As tall as you, maybe even taller." Lyra made that wind chime sound again. Her translator said it was laughter. "How long does it take for you to grow up?" Daniel thought about it, counting on his fingers. "Maybe 10 more years. Then I can go to the Space Academy like my mom." Lyra's glowing skin shifted to a darker blue color. "Oh, that is very fast. I will not be grown up for 40 more years. My people take a long time to grow. 40 years? That's forever," Daniel said. He couldn't imagine waiting that long for anything. "For my people, it is not so long. We live for 300 years or more." Daniel's eyes went wide. 300 years, wow. Humans only live to be about 80 or 90 if we're lucky. Lyra looked sad, though it was hard to tell on her alien face. "That is very short. Do you not feel rushed? Like there is never enough time?" Daniel shrugged. "I guess we just make the most of what we have. My mom says every day is a gift, so we should use it well." They sat down on the floor of the observation deck and talked. Lyra told Daniel about her planet, where cities were made of living crystal that grew from the ground like trees. She told him about her family and how her parent was a diplomat, someone who helped different aliens understand each other. Daniel told her about Earth, about oceans and mountains and all the animals that lived there. He told her about his dreams of exploring space and meeting aliens. "You are very different from what I expected," Lyra said. "The adult humans seem so serious and careful, but you are full of joy and excitement." "That's because I'm a kid," Daniel explained. "Kids are supposed to be excited about stuff. Adults forget how to have fun sometimes." "I do not want to forget," Lyra said softly. "I like feeling this way talking to you. It makes everything seem brighter." They talked for a whole hour before the doors suddenly opened. Captain Helen Price rushed in, looking worried and angry at the same time. Behind her were 2 tall Zathari adults who were glowing bright red with concern. "Daniel Arthur Price, you scared me half to death," his mother said, grabbing him by the shoulders. The Zathari adults were making urgent musical sounds at Lyra, who stood up and bowed her head. "I must go," Lyra said sadly. "It was nice to meet you, Daniel." As the adults started pulling them apart, Daniel shouted out without thinking, "Wait! When I grow up, I'm going to marry you." His mother gasped. The Zathari adults looked confused as their translators tried to make sense of the words. Lyra stared at Daniel with her deep space-like eyes. "What does marry mean?" she asked. "It means we'll be together forever," Daniel said quickly as his mother dragged him toward the door. "It means you're special and I'll come find you again." Lyra's skin shifted to a warm golden color. "Then I will wait for you, Daniel. Come find me when you are grown up." The door closed between them. Daniel was in big trouble with his mother, but he didn't care. He had made a promise and he meant to keep it. Over the next few days, the Zathari visitors finished their meeting with the human leaders and left. Captain Price tried to explain to her son that Zathari lived for hundreds of years, that Lyra would barely remember him in a few decades, that the galaxy was too big for such promises, but Daniel wasn't listening. Every night he would look out at the stars and think about the girl who glowed like moonlight. Years passed. Daniel grew from a boy into a teenager. While other kids played games and went to parties, Daniel studied. He learned everything he could about the Zathari people. He learned their musical language, which was so hard that most humans gave up after a few weeks. He learned about their culture, their history, their way of thinking. He read every book and watched every video about them. His friends thought he was crazy. "You're obsessed with aliens," they would say. "You should forget about that girl. She's probably forgotten about you." But Daniel would just smile and keep studying. When he was 16, he finished school early because he had worked so hard. At 18, he got into the best space academy in human territory with perfect scores. His teachers were impressed. His mother was proud but also worried. "Danny," she said one night, "you've spent 10 years thinking about a girl you met for 1 hour. Are you sure this is what you want?" "I made a promise, Mom," Daniel said simply, "and I'm going to keep it." At the academy, Daniel chose to study alien cultures and languages. He learned how to talk to different species, how to help them understand each other, how to solve problems between different worlds. He was the best student in his class, and everyone said he had a gift for understanding aliens. But Daniel knew the truth. He wasn't gifted. He was just focused. Every lesson, every skill, every achievement was part of his plan to find Lyra again. When he was 22, he graduated and became a lieutenant in the diplomatic corps. This was the part of the human military that dealt with meeting and talking to aliens. He requested to work on missions near Zathari space, and because he was so good at his job, they said yes. For 5 more years, Daniel worked on different ships, always moving closer to Zathari territory. He helped solve arguments between different alien races. He made friends with creatures from dozens of worlds. He earned medals and praise from his commanders, but he never stopped searching. Every time his ship visited a new station or planet, he would check the records looking for any mention of Lyra. He knew she had become a diplomat like her parent. He knew she was out there somewhere. Then, after 15 years of searching, he finally got his chance. A new program was starting where humans and Zathari would exchange diplomats to learn from each other. Daniel volunteered immediately and used every favor he had earned to make sure he was chosen. The journey to the Zathari homeworld took 3 months. Daniel spent every day preparing, practicing the language, reviewing everything he knew about their culture. His heart beat faster every day as they got closer. When the ship finally arrived at Zathar Prime, Daniel stood at the window and looked down at the beautiful planet below. Cities of crystal glowed in the light of their sun. The whole world seemed to shimmer with magic. Somewhere down there was Lyra. After 15 years, he was finally going to keep his promise. The little boy who had said, "I will marry you when I grow up," was now a man, and he had returned with a ring in his pocket and hope in his heart. Daniel's first few weeks on Zathar Prime were busy with meetings and training. The human diplomats were learning about Zathari culture, and Daniel participated in everything with focus and patience. But every day he looked at the lists of Zathari diplomats searching for one name. Then finally, in his 4th week, he was told he would shadow a Zathari diplomat to learn how they worked. When he walked into the crystal office and saw her standing there, his breath caught in his throat. Lyra had grown even more beautiful. She was taller now, more graceful in her movements. Her skin glowed with a deeper blue and silver light, and her eyes held the wisdom of 33 years. She wore formal diplomatic robes that shimmered like starlight. She looked at him with professional courtesy, not recognizing the man standing before her. "Lieutenant Daniel Price," she said in her musical voice, translated by the device. "I am Diplomat Lyra. You will observe my work for the next month." Daniel smiled and spoke in perfect Zathari, without using a translator. "Hello, Lyra. I told you I would come find you when I grew up." Lyra froze. Her skin flickered through a dozen colors in seconds, something that showed deep shock in her people. She stared at Daniel, really looking at him now, and her eyes grew wide. "The child," she whispered, "the small human boy who spoke of marriage. You actually came back." "I promised I would," Daniel said simply. Lyra's hands trembled and her glow became unstable. For her people who prided themselves on staying calm, this was like shouting. You were 8 years old. 15 of your years have passed. That is barely any time at all for my people. I thought it was just a sweet memory. For humans, 15 years is enough time to build a whole life, Daniel said, or to prepare for one. The other Zathari in the room quietly left, understanding that something important was happening. Lyra and Daniel stood alone in the office, looking at each other across the space between them. I don't understand, Lyra said, her voice shaking. Your people only live for such a short time. Why would you spend so much of your life chasing someone you met for 1 hour? Daniel took a step closer. Because you were kind to a scared little boy. You talked to me like I mattered, and when you said you would wait, I felt something I've never felt since. Lyra, humans don't live as long as your people. We don't have hundreds of years to think carefully about everything. We feel things strongly because we have to, and what I felt that day never went away. That's frightening, Lyra breathed. To feel so much so fast. Maybe, Daniel agreed. But it also means we know how to make every moment count. I spent 15 years learning your language and culture. I became someone who could stand beside you as an equal. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to, because some promises are too important to break. Lyra was quiet for a long time. Her glow slowly became steadier, shifting to a warm color. My family told me to forget about the human child. They said your lives are too short, too rushed, that I should not care about something so temporary. They're right, Daniel said honestly. I'll maybe live another 70 years if I'm lucky. To you, that's nothing. I'll be gone so quickly. Then why are you here? Because 70 years of something real is better than 300 years of being safe and alone. Over the next months, Daniel and Lyra spent time together. They walked through the crystal gardens of her world, where Daniel learned to see the subtle color changes that meant things to her people. They shared meals, trying each other's food and laughing at the differences. They talked for hours and hours, learning who they had become, but not everyone was happy about their growing closeness. Human leaders worried that personal relationships with aliens would make diplomatic work harder. Some wanted to send Daniel away to a different assignment. Among the Zathari, the concern was different. They worried that Lyra was making a terrible mistake by caring for someone who would die so soon. You will grieve for him, one of the Zathari elders told Lyra. Humans die so quickly. You will spend most of your life sad and alone after he's gone. Maybe, Lyra said, but I will also spend decades knowing what it means to really live. You've seen the humans. They feel happiness more strongly than we do. They love with a fire we can barely understand. Is it better to live 300 years of quiet emptiness or to have one bright flame of real feeling? The elders had no answer for that. Daniel's mother came to Zathar Prime to talk to her son. Danny, she said, holding his shoulders. You're talking about spending your life with someone who will live for centuries after you die. Have you really thought about what that means? Every single day, Daniel replied. I think about how she'll watch me get old while she stays young. I think about how unfair it is to her. But Mom, you taught me that humans can do anything if we try hard enough, that our short lives make us strong because we value every moment. Were you lying? Helen closed her eyes. No, but I want you to be smart about this. I am being smart. I found someone who makes me better, who helps me see things differently, who understands me. How many people find that in a lifetime? And you want me to walk away because the math doesn't work? Helen looked at her son's face and saw the same determination he'd had as a child. She sighed. You really are going to marry her, if she says yes. You're crazy. I'm human, Daniel said with a smile. It's what we do. 3 months after their reunion, Daniel made his decision. He worked with both human and Zathari artists to create something special. The result was a ring made of crystal from Zathar Prime set in metal from Earth. When worn, it would glow softly, responding to emotions the way Zathari skin did. He asked Lyra to meet him in the gardens where they had spent so many evenings. When she arrived, she knew something important was about to happen. 15 years ago, Daniel began, taking her hand. A little boy made an impossible promise to a girl made of starlight. Everyone said to forget it, that it was childish and impractical, and maybe they were right. Maybe this is the craziest thing anyone has ever done. He pulled out the ring and Lyra's skin flared bright with surprise. But humans don't give up. I spent 15 years becoming worthy of you, Lyra, learning everything about you and your people. And what I learned is that every moment with you is worth whatever pain comes later. I know I'm going to age while you stay young. I know I'm going to die while you still have centuries to live. I know this isn't fair to you, but I also know that I love you with everything I am, and I will love you every single day I have left. He knelt down and held up the ring. Lyra, will you marry me? Will you let me show you what it means to burn bright, even if it's only for a little while? Tears ran down Lyra's face. Her people only cried when they felt overwhelming emotions. You beautiful, foolish, impossible human, she said, pulling him to his feet. Yes, I will marry you. I will take your short, bright life and treasure every moment. And when you're gone, I will carry the light you gave me forever. She held out her hand and Daniel put the ring on her finger. It glowed warm and bright, matching the feeling in their hearts. Everyone will think we're crazy, Lyra said, laughing through her tears. Let them, Daniel replied, holding her close. Humans are good at doing impossible things. 6 months later, they were married on the same space station where they first met. Aliens from dozens of worlds came to watch. Some came because they had to, others because they were curious. But many came because the story had spread across the galaxy about the human who kept a childhood promise, and the Zathari who learned to love deeply. The ceremony mixed both their traditions. They spoke vows in both languages, exchanged rings, and shared their light. When Daniel kissed his bride and her glow became bright enough to light the whole room, everyone cheered in their own way. At the celebration, Daniel's mother stood next to Lyra's mother. They watched the newlyweds dance together, mixing human energy with Zathari grace, both of them laughing with pure joy. He will die young, Lyra's mother said quietly. She will grieve for centuries. Yes, Helen agreed. But look at her now. They watched Lyra glow brighter than any Zathari had in generations, her face full of happiness. Perhaps, Lyra's mother said slowly, there are worse things than feeling deeply. Perhaps we forgot that over our long lives. Daniel and Lyra lived together for 63 years. They built a life between their two worlds, helped other humans and Zathari understand each other, and raised 2 children who carried both human passion and Zathari wisdom. When Daniel died at 91 holding Lyra's hand, his last words were simple. Thank you for waiting. Lyra lived for 200 more years after that. She never married again. Instead, she spent her long life teaching others about the brief, bright species that had taught her people how to feel again. She always wore the ring Daniel had given her. When young Zathari asked if it had been worth it loving someone so temporary, she would smile with the warmth she had learned from humans. Every single moment, she would say, even the goodbye, because that was the truth about promises kept and love cherished. They didn't end when the moment passed. They echoed forward, changing everything they touched, proving that the most impossible things were exactly the ones worth doing. And somewhere in the vast universe, an 8-year-old boy's promise had changed the galaxy, one kept word at a time.